The Brighton Grand Hotel loomed against the stormy English Channel, its Art Deco facade battered by relentless rain on that fateful evening in 1935. Guests huddled in the opulent lobby, their whispers drowned by the thunder's roar. Sir Reginald Harrington, the imperious industrialist, dined alone in the gilded restaurant, his face etched with unspoken fury. As the clock struck 9, a strangled gasp echoed through the room. Harrington clutched his throat, his crystal goblet shattering on the marble floor. "Poison," the whispers began. Who among the elegant assemblage harbored such venom? Hercule Poirot, the renowned Belgian detective on holiday, set down his tisane, his little gray cells already stirring. The game was afoot. Chapter 1. The Arrival of Shadows. The Brighton Grand Hotel stood resolute against the tempestuous English Channel, its Art Deco silhouette a beacon amidst the storm that battered the coast in the autumn of 1935. Rain lashed the tall windows, and the wind howled like a chorus of restless spirits. Inside, the lobby glowed with opulence. Crystal chandeliers cast prismatic light across velvet settees, polished brass fixtures gleamed, and the faint scent of jasmine lingered from vases overflowing with blooms. Hercule Poirot, the diminutive Belgian detective with his impeccably waxed mustache and fastidious air, stepped from a taxi onto the rain-slicked promenade. "Ah, Brighton," he murmured, adjusting his Homburg hat. "A place for repose, no? Yet the sea, she is restless tonight." His holiday was meant to be a respite from the intrigues of London, a chance to savor the bracing air and perhaps a fine bouillabaisse. But fate, as Poirot well knew, had a penchant for disruption. The doorman, a ruddy-faced man in a gold-braided uniform, ushered him inside with a deferential bow. "Welcome, Monsieur Poirot. Your suite awaits." Poirot nodded, his sharp eyes scanning the lobby. A constellation of guests mingled, their voices a low raven hair and piercing gray eyes, observed the scene through a veil of cigarette smoke. Her scarlet lips curled faintly, as if amused by some private jest. She held a cigarette holder with the elegance of a bygone era, her black velvet gown clinging to her like a second skin. Dr. Philip Crowe, the hotel's resident physician, stood apart, his lean frame and serious demeanor at odds with the festive air. His medical bag rested at his feet, a silent testament to his readiness. Poirot checked in at the desk, requesting a suite with a sea view despite the storm's ferocity. The concierge, a nervous young man named Collins, fumbled with the register. "Of course, Monsieur Poirot. Room 312, overlooking the promenade." As Poirot signed the ledger, a heated exchange drifted from the lift. "You'll regret this, Evelyn." Sir Reginald's voice boomed, followed by a softer, pleading reply from Lady Evelyn. "Please, Reginald, not here." Poirot raised an eyebrow, his little gray cells already stirring. "The human passions," he mused. "They are as stormy as the weather, no?" The lift carried him to the 3rd floor, its brass cage rattling faintly. His suite was a study in elegance. A 4-poster bed draped in damask, a mahogany writing desk, and a balcony where the sea's roar was a constant companion. Poirot unpacked with precision, aligning his toiletries with military exactness. He paused to sip a tisane, savoring the warmth as he gazed at the churning waves. Below, the promenade was deserted, save for a solitary figure in a raincoat hurrying toward the pier. Curious, Poirot noted, though his thoughts were interrupted by a knock. The bellboy, a gangly youth named Thomas, delivered his luggage. "Anything else, sir?" Thomas asked, his eyes flickering with unease. Poirot tipped generously, noting the boy's trembling hands. "You are nervous, young man. The storm, perhaps?" Thomas shook his head. "No, sir. It's—" The guest mentioned Lang's furtive telephone call in the lobby, speaking of debts and discretion. Poirot's ears caught every fragment, his mind assembling the mosaic. He noted Lady Evelyn's absence. She excused herself at 8:40, claiming a headache, and returned at 8:52, her cheeks flushed. Lang lingered at the bar until 8:50, while Voss claimed to have been in her room, though no one confirmed it. Crow moved freely, checking on an elderly guest before rejoining the diners. At precisely 8:55, the atmosphere shattered. Harrington raised his goblet for another toast. "To those who dare to win," he proclaimed. He drank deeply, then froze. A strangled gasp escaped his lips. His face contorted, his hands clawing at his throat. The goblet slipped, shattering on the marble floor, its contents pooling like blood. Guests screamed. Waiters froze. Harrington collapsed, his body twitching violently, froth at his lips. Dr. Crow rushed forward, but his efforts were futile. "Cyanide," he pronounced, the acrid scent unmistakable. Chaos erupted. Women wept, men shouted, and the storm outside roared in mocking chorus. Poirot knelt beside the body, his gloved hands careful not to disturb the scene. The goblet's shards glinted under the chandelier, a faint smudge on one piece catching his eye. Lipstick? Or something else? Inspector Japp, summoned from a nearby precinct, burst in, his trench coat dripping. "Poirot, you devil! Holiday my foot, what's this mess?" Poirot rose, brushing his knees. "Mon ami, it is murder, and a most audacious one. The poison, she was in the wine, but how, and by whom?" His eyes swept the room. Lady Evelyn, pale as a ghost. Lang pacing nervously. Voss, her composure a mask. Crow, his hands steady despite the horror. The other guests, minor aristocrats, a novelist, a retired colonel, milled in shock, their faces a gallery of fear and suspicion. Japp cordoned off the restaurant, holiday abandoned. The little gray cells demanded action, and Hercule Poirot would not disappoint. Chapter 2. The Poisoned Chalice. The dining room of the Brighton Grand Hotel, moments ago a stage for elegance, now lay frozen in a tableau of horror. Sir Reginald Harrington's body sprawled across the marble floor, his face twisted in a final grimace of agony, the shattered remnants of his crystal goblet glinting like scattered stars under the chandelier's glow. The acrid scent of cyanide, sharp as bitter almonds, hung heavy in the air, mingling grotesquely with the lingering aroma of roast pheasant and claret. Guests stood petrified, their faces pale as the storm outside roared its indifference. Waiters hovered uncertain, their trays trembling. Hercule Poirot, his holiday now a distant memory, knelt beside the corpse, his gloved fingers hovering over the shards, careful not to disturb the scene. "Mon Dieu," he murmured, his sharp eyes scanning the chaos. "It is murder, and one most deliberate." The little gray cells, as he called them, hummed with purpose, already weaving the threads of this sinister tapestry. Dr. Philip Crow, The hotel's resident physician pushed through the crowd, his lean frame cutting a path with authority. "Stand back, all of you," he barked, his stethoscope dangling like a talisman. He knelt opposite Poirot, his medical bag open, and pressed 2 fingers to Harrington's neck, though the gesture was futile. "He's gone," Crow pronounced, his voice steady but grim, cyanide by the smell. Instantaneous or near enough. He rose, brushing his trousers, and met Poirot's gaze. "No saving him, I'm afraid." Poirot nodded, his mustache twitching slightly. "The poison. It is swift. But the hand that delivered it, that is the question, no?" Crow's eyes flickered, but he said nothing. Stepping back to confer with a waiter, the room buzzed with panic. Lady Evelyn Harrington, the victim's wife, had collapsed onto a velvet chair, her emerald silk gown pooling around her like spilled ink. Her delicate hands clutched a "You said?" He shook water from his hat, his eyes narrowing as he surveyed the scene. "Murder, is it? Should have known you'd stumble into one." Poirot rose, brushing his knees with a fastidious hand. "Mon ami, it is not I who stumble, but murder that finds me, like a faithful hound." Jap snorted, already barking orders to the staff. "Nobody leaves this room. Secure the exits, and don't touch that table." He turned to Poirot, lowering his voice. "What have we got then?" Poirot gestured to the goblet's shards. "Cyanide, as the good doctor confirms. In the wine, I suspect, but only in Monsieur Harrington's glass. The decanter. It was shared, oui?" Jap nodded, summoning a waiter who confirmed the Bordeaux had been poured for the entire table from a single decanter. Yet only Harrington's drink proved fatal. Poirot's gaze swept the suspects. Lady Evelyn, now composed, dabbed her eyes and offered a trembling account. I stepped out for air, just before the toast. The room felt so close, and Reginald was in such a temper. Her voice faltered, and she glanced away, her fingers twisting the handkerchief. Poirot noted her absence. 8:40 to 8:52, by the waiter's estimate. Time enough to tamper? Victor Lang, when questioned, admitted to a heated business dispute with Harrington earlier that day. "Shares, that's all," he said, his smile strained. "He wanted to sell off half the company. I disagreed, but poison? Absurd." His pacing resumed, his hands clenching and unclenching. Miss Voss, questioned next, leaned back in her chair, her cigarette holder poised like a scepter. "I knew Reginald in Paris, years ago," she admitted coolly. "A fleeting romance, nothing more. I was in my room during the toast. Ask the operator. I sent a telegraph." Her voice was smooth, but her eyes held a glint of defiance. Dr. Crow, wiping his glasses, confirmed prescribing sedatives for Harrington's nerves, but insisted he had no access to cyanide. "My pharmacy is locked, and I was promenade, but no one saw her." "He was a tyrant," she whispered to Poirot, her voice barely audible. "Always controlling, always cruel. But I loved him once, you know." Her eyes, red-rimmed, held a flicker of something. Guilt, or merely grief? Lang, meanwhile, protested his innocence with increasing fervor. "I'm no murderer. Yes, we argued, but I'd never—" He stopped, glancing at Voss, who raised an eyebrow but said nothing. Poirot noted the exchange, filing it away. Crow, when pressed, admitted a professional dislike for Harrington. "His factories poisoned half my hometown," he said bitterly. "But I'm a healer, not a killer." His hands, steady during the examination, now trembled slightly. The staff, too, offered fragments. Thomas, the valet, admitted overhearing Harrington threaten Lang with ruin over a financial irregularity. He said he'd expose him, Thomas stammered, his eyes darting to the floor. The concierge, Collins, mentioned a strange delivery for Miss Voss that afternoon. A small package, contents unknown. Poirot's interest piqued. And this package, where is it now? Collins shrugged. She took it to her room, sir. The maid, a timid girl named Mary, whispered of finding letters in Lady Evelyn's suite. Love letters, not in Harrington's hand. I didn't read them, sir, I swear, she said, flushing. Poirot patted her arm. You have done well, mademoiselle. The truth, it reveals itself in whispers. As the clock struck 10, the guests were escorted to their rooms under guard. The hotel now a gilded cage. Poirot lingered in the lounge, sipping a fresh tisane, his mind a whirl of motives and opportunities. Lady Evelyn's absence, Lang's desperation, Voss's enigmatic past, Crow's grudge. Each suspect bore a shadow of guilt. And Thomas, the nervous, replaced by the thrill of the chase. A murder, audacious and precise, demanded his attention. The scream he learned from a trembling maid had been a false alarm. Miss Voss claimed a nightmare, though her cool demeanor suggested otherwise. I dreamt of Paris, she told the night porter, her voice steady, her gray eyes unyielding. Poirot filed this away, noting her refusal to elaborate. He wandered the third-floor corridor, his sharp senses attuned to every creak and whisper. From the staff quarters he overheard a maid, Mary, gossiping about Lady Evelyn's secret letters, found tucked in a vanity drawer. Love letters they were, but not from Sir Reginald, she whispered to a footman. Poirot's ears pricked. Elsewhere, a muffled telephone conversation caught his attention. Victor Lang, in a shadowed alcove, speaking urgently. The funds must be transferred tonight, he hissed. No, he's dead, there's no going back. Poirot's lips pursed. The little gray cells, they must assemble the puzzle, he mused, retreating to consider these fragments. Morning broke gray and sodden, the storm unabated. Inspector Japp, bleary-eyed from a night of telegrams to Scotland Yard, gathered the suspects in the hotel's drawing room, a cavernous space of mahogany paneling and overstuffed armchairs. The air was thick with suspicion, the guests' faces a gallery of unease. Lady Evelyn sat rigidly, her emerald eyes red-rimmed, her gloved hands clutching a teacup that rattled faintly. Victor Lang leaned against a bookcase, his polished smile fraying at the edges. Miss Elena Voss, poised in a high-backed chair, lit a cigarette, her movements deliberate as if daring scrutiny. Dr. Philip Crowe stood by the window, his medical bag at his feet, his expression one of weary resignation. Thomas, the valet, hovered at the edges, his nervous glances betraying a deeper fear. Japp began with Lady Evelyn, his notebook open. Mrs. Harrington, your absence during dinner. Where exactly were you? Her voice trembled, but her word, murder. Reginald was difficult, yes, but I'd never resort to poison. Yet his earlier phone call gnawed at Poirot. Debts and desperation were potent motives. Lang admitted arguing with Harrington that afternoon, but claimed they'd reconciled. He agreed to delay the sale, he insisted, though his eyes flickered toward Voss, who remained impassive. Poirot took his turn with Miss Voss, drawing her aside to a quiet corner. "Mademoiselle, your past with Monsieur Harrington. It is not so fleeting, no?" Her cigarette paused mid-air, her lips parting slightly. "You are perceptive, Monsieur Poirot," she said, her voice low, accented with a trace of Eastern Europe. She confessed. Harrington had jilted her in Paris a decade ago, leaving her reputation in tatters. He promised marriage, then cast me aside for Evelyn. I was young, foolish. Her eyes hardened. But revenge. I am no murderess. Poirot tilted his head. Yet you are in the dining room, close to the decanter, oui? She shook her head. I sent a telegraph. Check the records. Poirot made a mental note to verify, suspecting forgery was within her skill. Dr. Crowe, when questioned, admitted a personal grudge. Harrington's factories polluted my hometown, he said, his voice tight. My sister died of lung disease thanks to his negligence. But I took an oath to save lives, not take them. His medical bag, however, held Poirot's interest. A vial of cyanide was reported missing from the hotel's pharmacy, accessible only to Crowe and a select staff. I keep it locked, Crowe insisted, though his keyring dangled loosely, a potential lapse. Poirot's eyes narrowed. And who else might have such access, Doctor? Crowe faltered. The staff, perhaps. I can't watch it every moment. A new clue surfaced, courtesy of the concierge Collins. He produced a logbook showing the pharmacy's inventory. The cyanide vial had vanished the previous day, before Harrington's death. I reported it to Dr. Crowe. Cop voice sharp. Someone's trying to frame me, she cried, her composure cracking. Poirot stepped to the window, gazing at the storm-tossed sea. The clues were a mosaic. The missing vial, the lipstick, the glove, the letters, Lang's call. Each suspect bore a motive. Evelyn's inheritance, Lang's fraud, Voss's revenge, Crowe's vendetta, even Thomas's fear. But the method, cyanide in a single glass, required precision, opportunity, and nerve. Poirot's mind traced the timeline. Harrington's toast at 8:55. Evelyn's absence from 8:40 to 8:52. Lang at the bar until 8:50. Voss allegedly in her room. Crowe mingling freely. The decanter was untouched, but the glass. Someone had slipped the poison during a fleeting moment. A sleight of hand, perhaps, during the toast's chaos. As the interviews concluded, Japp's constables searched the suspects' rooms. In Lang's suite, they found a ledger hinting at embezzlement. Pages torn, numbers altered. That's not mine, Lang protested, but Japp's eyes gleamed. Looks damning, mate. Poirot, however, demurred. Mon ami. The evidence, it is too neat, no? A ledger left so openly. He suspected a setup. But by whom? Voss's telegraph records confirmed her alibi, yet the operator admitted the system could be manipulated. Evelyn's letters, shown to Poirot by Mary, spoke of love and escape, signed only R. Robert Sinclair, the artist, or another deception? The storm reached a crescendo, lightning illuminating the drawing room in stark flashes. Poirot's thoughts were interrupted by a sudden blackout, plunging the hotel into darkness. Gasps filled the room, followed by the sound of footsteps, rapid, retreating down the corridor. Someone flees, Japp shouted, fumbling for his torch. Poirot, guided by instinct, moved toward the door, his cane tapping softly. The lights flickered back, revealing an empty hallway, but a crumpled note lay at his feet. He unfolded it, reading, "Murder of Harrington, with its audacious use of cyanide, was a puzzle of motives and misdirection, and this room, he sensed, held a key." The previous night's blackout and the anonymous note, "Beware the widow's tears," had set Poirot's mind ablaze. The scream from Miss Voss's room, the whispered gossip of love letters, Victor Lang's furtive call, and the missing cyanide vial formed a mosaic of suspicion, each piece tantalizing yet incomplete. Poirot began his search methodically, his cane tapping softly as he moved from the desk to the wardrobe, then to the bedside table. Among the papers he found a ledger, its leather cover embossed with Harrington's initials. Flipping through it, he discovered columns of figures, some scratched out, others circled in red ink. The numbers told a story of betrayal. Millions siphoned from the company, with notations implicating Victor Lang. "Ah, the motive financier," Poirot noted, his mustache twitching. The ledger was damning, but its prominence on the desk felt too convenient, as if left for discovery. A plant, perhaps, to divert suspicion? Tucked beneath the ledger was a more delicate find. A single sheet of scented stationery, written in feminine script. "My darling, soon we shall be free. Meet me at the pier tonight." No signature, but the ink matched the love letters Mary, the maid, had mentioned finding in Lady Evelyn's suite. Poirot's eyes narrowed. The widow, she weeps, but does she also scheme? He pocketed the letter discreetly, noting its faint jasmine scent, reminiscent of the hotel's lobby vases. The room yielded other clues. A torn photograph of Harrington with a younger woman, not Evelyn, but perhaps Miss Voss in her Paris days, and a cigar stub, its band marked with a crest Poirot recognized as belonging to a London club, frequented by Dr. Philip Crowe. Each item was a thread, but the tapestry remained elusive. Downstairs, Jap convened the suspects in the drawing room for further questioning, the air thick with tension. Lady Evelyn sat pale and composed, her emerald gown carpet. "Sir Reginald was in a rage, sir, about money gone missing." Poirot tilted his head. "And you, young man, where were you when the poison struck?" Thomas flushed. "Serving drinks, sir, but I didn't touch his glass." His defensiveness piqued Poirot's interest. Fear or guilt? Jap moved to Lady Evelyn, pressing her on the love letters. "They're nonsense," she snapped, though her voice wavered. "Robert Sinclair was a friend, nothing more. Someone's trying to frame me." Poirot noted her mention of the artist, who had vanished that morning, leaving only rumors of an affair. Miss Voss, when questioned, maintained her alibi. "I was in my room sending a telegraph," she said coolly, exhaling smoke. "The operator will confirm." Poirot made a mental note to check the records, suspecting her poise masked calculation. Dr. Crowe, meanwhile, admitted to prescribing Harrington sedatives, but insisted his pharmacy was secure. "The cyanide vial was reported missing yesterday," he said, his voice tight. "I assumed it misplaced, but now—" He trailed off, his hands unsteady. Poirot's eyes lingered on the doctor's bag, wondering what else it might conceal. A new clue emerged from the laboratory, summoned by Jap's constables. The coroner's report confirmed cyanide as the cause of death, but trace amounts of arsenic were found in Harrington's system, suggesting chronic poisoning over weeks. "A slow build-up," Crowe explained, his brow furrowed. It weakened him, made the cyanide more lethal. Poirot's mind raced. Arsenic required access, patience, and intimacy. Someone close to Harrington. Lady Evelyn, perhaps, with her daily teas. Or Crow, with his medical supplies. The lipstick smudge on the goblet shard, which Poirot had sent for analysis, matched Voss's scarlet shade, but she denied touching the glass. "Someone stole my lipstick," she said flatly, her eyes daring Poirot to challenge her. "Another red herring," he said. "Jewelry box." "It's not mine," Evelyn cried, her composure shattering. Jap's eyes gleamed, but Poirot raised a hand. "Mon ami, consider. The vial, the ledger, the lipstick. All too perfect, no? Someone wishes us to see only the surface." He requested the tea leaves be tested further, suspecting a plant. In Lang's room, a receipt for a jeweler's shop hinted at a debt repaid. Or a bribe. Voss's suite held a locked case which she refused to open, claiming personal papers. Crow's medical bag, searched at last, revealed no cyanide, but a syringe with traces of sedative. Innocent or a cover? As evening fell, Jap's patience snapped. He arrested Lang, citing the ledger as evidence. "You're in deep, mate. Embezzlement and murder." Lang protested, his voice hoarse. "I stole, yes, but I didn't kill him." Poirot, observing silently, demurred. "Non, Inspector. It is too neat. The true murderer, they play a cleverer game." The hotel buzzed with whispers. Guests speculated, staff gossiped, and the storm's drizzle turned to fog, cloaking the promenade in mystery. Poirot returned to his suite, his mind a whirl of timelines and motives. Harrington's death at 8:55, Evelyn's absence, Lang's proximity, Voss's alibi, Crow's access, all pointed in circles. Then, a gunshot rang out from Crow's room, shattering the evening's quiet. Guests screamed, and Jap raced upstairs. Suicide or staging? Poirot followed, his cane tapping with purpose. The game was escalating, and the truth lay just beyond his grasp. Chapter 5. Veils of Deception. The Brighton Grand Hotel, its opulent facade battered by the ceaseless drizzle, stood as a gilded cage under the weight of murder. The gunshot from Dr. Philip Crow's room had pierced the evening's uneasy calm, sending guests into a fresh wave of panic. Hercule Poirot, his holiday long forsaken, followed Inspector Jap up the grand staircase, his cane tapping a steady rhythm against the polished wood. "Thread. Lady Evelyn's?" Poirot's eyes narrowed. "Curieux," he murmured, slipping the glove into his pocket. Crow, clutching his wound, insisted an intruder had fired during the blackout. "I saw only a shape, then the shot." Jap scoffed. "Convenient, Doctor. Your own gun, your own room." Poirot, however, sensed staging. The wound was too neat, the glove too obvious. The hotel physician was tended by a colleague summoned from town, while Jap's constables sealed the room. Poirot lingered, noting the open window, its curtains fluttering in the damp breeze. Footprints in the carpet suggested a hurried exit, but the rain outside would have erased any trail. The attacker. They wish us to believe in a phantom, Poirot mused, his mustache twitching. He recalled the clues: the ledger implicating Victor Lang, the love letter hinting at Lady Evelyn's affair, the lipstick smudge tied to Miss Elena Voss, and the arsenic traces in Harrington's system. Now, a gunshot and a glove added to the mosaic, each piece a potential misdirection. Was Crow a victim or a clever manipulator? Japp reconvened the suspects in the drawing room, their faces drawn under the chandelier's glow. Lady Evelyn, her gray dress a stark contrast to her earlier emerald silk, gasped at the news of Crow's attack. "My glove! It was stolen. Yesterday, from my suite." Her voice trembled, but her eyes held a flicker of defiance. Poirot studied her, noting her quick denial. Victor Lang, still reeling from his arrest, stood handcuffed, his sharp features taut. "This is madness. First I'm framed for murder, now this." Miss Voss, lighting another cigarette, remained serene, her gray eyes scanning the room like a predator's. "Poor Dr. Crow," she said, her tone laced with mockery. "Such a dangerous place, this hotel." Thomas, the valet, hovered at the edges, his nervous glances darting between the suspects and Poirot. Poirot began assembling timelines, his mind a steel trap for details. Poirot raised a hand. "Mon ami, the evidence, it multiplies too conveniently. The glove, the syringe, the ledger, all point fingers, yet none fit perfectly." He requested the syringe be tested further, suspecting another red herring. The lipstick smudge, analyzed overnight, matched Voss's scarlet shade, but she reiterated her claim of theft. "My lipstick was taken from my vanity," she said coolly. "Someone wants me blamed." Poirot's mind circled. A conspiracy, perhaps, with multiple hands at work? Interviews deepened the intrigue. Thomas admitted witnessing Harrington's cruelty to Evelyn, recounting a night when he'd overheard shouting and the sound of a slap. "He was a brute," Thomas whispered, his eyes downcast. "She deserved better." Poirot noted the valet's loyalty to Evelyn, wondering if it masked a darker motive. Lang, questioned again, confessed to embezzling funds but swore he'd not killed Harrington. "He was going to expose me, yes, but I'd have paid him back." His desperation rang true, yet his earlier call about debts suggested deeper entanglements. Voss, pressed on her Paris history, revealed more. Harrington had not only jilted her but blackmailed her over a stolen jewel, threatening to ruin her anew. "I hated him," she admitted, her voice like ice. "But I'm no poisoner." Poirot walked the hotel's corridors, the drizzle outside a soft counterpoint to his racing thoughts. The clues were a labyrinth. The ledger, the love letter, the glove, the syringe, the arsenic, the anonymous note. Each suspect had motive: Evelyn's inheritance and abuse, Lang's financial ruin, Voss's revenge, Crow's vendetta, Thomas's loyalty. Yet, the method. Cyanide in a single glass, arsenic over weeks, required precision and access. Poirot reconstructed the dinner. Evelyn's absence, Lang's proximity to the bar, Voss's alleged telegraph, Crow's freedom to move. The decanter was clean, but the glass was tampered with, likely during the toast's distraction. A ring vial, perhaps, among the suspects, a shared goal to eliminate Harrington? Or was one mastermind manipulating the others? Thunder rumbled, a low growl that seemed to echo the hotel's secrets. Then, a crash from the promenade, a figure slipping into the night, barely visible through the fog. Poirot rose, his cane in hand. Pursuit was tempting, but the truth lay within these walls, and he would not be distracted. The game was afoot, and the shadows were closing in. Chapter 6. Echoes from the Past. The Brighton Grand Hotel, its Art Deco elegance now a facade for treachery, stood resolute against the fog that rolled in from the English Channel, cloaking the promenade in a spectral haze. Hercule Poirot, his holiday a distant memory, paced the hotel's library, a cavernous room of leather-bound tomes and flickering lamplight. The gunshot in Dr. Philip Crow's room, the anonymous note warning of Lady Evelyn's tires, and the mounting clues, ledger, love letter, glove, syringe, arsenic, formed a labyrinth of deception. Poirot's little gray cells buzzed with purpose, piecing together a puzzle where every suspect bore a shadow of guilt. The past, it casts long echoes, he murmured, his mustache twitching as he considered the web of motives spun around Sir Reginald Harrington's murder. The cyanide's swift strike and the arsenic's slow betrayal suggested a killer, or killers, with both patience and audacity. Poirot's investigation deepened, driven by a need for order amidst the chaos. He requested access to the hotel's records, poring over guest logs and staff schedules. A new revelation emerged. A decade-old newspaper clipping, tucked in a forgotten drawer, detailed a factory accident linked to Harrington's steel empire. Toxic runoff had poisoned a village, killing several, including Dr. Crow's younger sister. The incident was hushed with bribes, but Crow's presence at the hotel, Poirot suspected, was no coincidence. Confronted in the library, Crow's composure cracked. Her gray eyes, scanning the room like a hawk's. Thomas, the valet, lingered at the edges, his nervous fidgeting betraying a deeper fear. Jap brandished a new clue. A witness. The hotel manager who recalled Voss arguing with Harrington in the lobby hours before dinner. "You owe me, Reginald," she had hissed, her voice carrying to the concierge desk. Confronted, Voss exhaled smoke, her lips curling. "A debt from Paris, nothing more. He stole my future there, my inheritance. But I settled it long ago." Her denial was smooth, but Poirot noted her clenched fist, a crack in her facade. Further questioning revealed more shadows from the past. Lang's embezzlement detailed in the ledger was not solitary. He had a partner, Poirot suspected, possibly Voss. A telegraph from a London banker confirmed Lang's call the night of the murder, discussing a transfer to an offshore account. It was business, Lang insisted, his voice hoarse. Not murder. But the account bore Voss's name as a co-signatory, a link she dismissed as coincidence. "We invested together, years ago," she said coolly. Poirot's eyes narrowed. A shared motive, perhaps, tied to Harrington's blackmail. The love letters in Evelyn's suite, signed only R, pointed to Robert Sinclair, the artist who had vanished. Jap's constables traced him to a Brighton boarding house, but he was gone, leaving a sketch of Evelyn, intimate, incriminating. "He was a friend," Evelyn protested, tears welling. Poirot, however, sensed a deeper connection, perhaps manipulated by another. A startling clue emerged from the pharmacy records. The missing cyanide vial bore fingerprints. Thomas's, the valet. Summoned, he stammered. "I handled it for Dr. Crow, sir, moving supplies. I swear I didn't take it." His panic was palpable, his eyes darting to Evelyn, who looked away. Poirot studied him, noting his loyalty to the widow. Walked the hotel's gardens, the fog dampening his coat as he pondered. The clues were a symphony of misdirection. The ledger, the glove, the syringe, the lipstick, the note. Evelyn's inheritance and abuse gave her reason. Lang's fraud and Voss's revenge burned brightly. Crow's vendetta simmered. And Thomas's fear hinted at hidden loyalties. The timeline tightened. Evelyn's absence from 8:40 to 8:52. Lang at the bar until 8:50. Voss's telegraph, Crow's mingling. The cyanide was slipped into Harrington's glass during the toast. But the arsenic pointed to a longer game. A partnership, perhaps, between two with shared grievances. A maid's discovery deepened the mystery. A locked safe in Harrington's suite, opened by Japp's locksmith, contained a jewel. A sapphire pendant reported stolen in Paris years ago. Voss's eyes widened when shown it. "That was mine," she whispered, her composure cracking. "He took it, used it to control me." Blackmail, then, was Harrington's weapon, giving Voss a motive as sharp as a blade. But the safe also held a revised will, cutting Evelyn out entirely. Forged, Poirot suspected, given its fresh ink. Lang's handwriting matched the alterations, but he denied involvement. "Someone's framing me," he shouted, his desperation echoing Evelyn's. As evening descended, the fog thickened, muffling the sea's roar. Poirot sat in the lounge, sipping a tisane, his mind a whirl of echoes. The factory accident tied Crow. The jewel tied Voss. The will tied Lang, the letters tied Evelyn. And Thomas's fingerprints tied him to the poison. Each clue pointed, yet none resolved. Then, a crash from the conservatory shattered the quiet. Glass breaking, followed by a muffled curse. Poirot sipped a tisane, his eyes scanning the room for answers. The morning brought a leaden sky, the drizzle unrelenting. Japp, his trench coat damp, pursued a new clue. A notary's telegram confirming that Harrington's will, found in the safe, bore forged alterations in Victor Lang's handwriting. "Guilty as sin," Japp declared, brandishing the document in the drawing room where the suspects gathered. Lang, his sharp features pale, protested vehemently. "I never touched his will. Someone's framing me. First the ledger, now this." His voice cracked, and Poirot noted his glance toward Miss Elena Voss, who sat smoking, her gray eyes unreadable. Lady Evelyn, her gray dress a symbol of mourning, clutched a handkerchief, her face a mask of distress. Dr. Crow, his shoulder bandaged, stood stiffly, his medical bag at his feet. Thomas, the valet, hovered near the door, his nervous fidgeting a constant undercurrent. Poirot intervened, his voice calm but commanding. "Mon ami, consider the red herrings, the lipstick on the goblet, the glove in Dr. Crow's room, the syringe in Madame Harrington's luggage. They are distractions, non? The will, too, is too perfect a clue." Japp scowled but nodded, trusting Poirot's instinct. The detective turned to Thomas, whose trembling hands betrayed fear. "You, young man, you heard Monsieur Harrington threaten Monsieur Lang. What else did you hear?" Thomas swallowed, his eyes darting to Evelyn. He was cruel, sir. Beat the staff, shouted at her ladyship. Said she'd get nothing if she left him. Poirot's eyes narrowed. Thomas's loyalty to Evelyn was evident, but was it protective or something more? The investigation deepened, peeling back layers of the past. Poirot questioned Voss privately, her cigarette smoke curling like a serpent. Mademoiselle, the sapphire pendant, it was yours, stolen by Harrington, oui? She nodded, her composure fraying. In Paris he took everything. My inheritance, my reputation. Glove felt staged. Another false trail to divert suspicion. Lady Evelyn's interview was fraught. The love letters, signed R, pointed to Robert Sinclair, the artist who had vanished. He was a friend, nothing more, she insisted, tears welling. Reginald's cruelty drove me to confide in him, but I didn't kill my husband. The arsenic in her tea leaves tested further was a recent addition, supporting her claim of being framed. Poirot noted her trembling hands, her quick glances at Thomas. Was she shielding someone or herself? The syringe in her luggage bearing poison traces was another convenient clue, its needle matching Crow's medical supplies. Someone had access to my bag, Crow muttered, his eyes darting to Thomas, who flushed. Poirot walked the promenade, the fog dampening his coat as he reconstructed the timeline. Harrington's cyanide death at 8:55 p.m., preceded by weeks of arsenic poisoning, required intimacy and precision. Evelyn's absence from 8:40 to 8:52, Lang at the bar until 8:50, Voss's telegraph, Crow's mingling, all offered opportunities. The decanter was clean, but the glass was tampered with, likely during the toast's chaos. The arsenic, likely in Harrington's tea, pointed to Evelyn. But the planted clues suggested a broader scheme. Was there a partnership, or a single puppet master pulling strings? A new witness emerged, a barmaid who saw Lang near the decanter before the toast, adjusting glasses. He looked nervous, she said, her voice low. Lang denied it, claiming he'd only ordered a drink. Japp's men found a jeweler's receipt in Lang's room, tied to a payment for a sapphire. Voss's pendant, perhaps? Voss denied involvement, but her locked case, still unopened, loomed large. Poirot requested its inspection, but Voss refused, citing privacy. "Force it and you'll find nothing," she snapped. Poirot smiled faintly. "The nothing, mademoiselle. It often speaks loudest." The conservatory's broken pane yielded little. A shard of glass, no fingerprints, eyes, but denied poisoning. Poirot believed him, sensing the true killer's hand was subtler. Then, a cry from the shore, a body washed ashore, bloated and pale. Robert Sinclair, the artist, his pockets empty save for a sketch of Evelyn. Drowned or pushed. The fog thickened, and Poirot knew the false trails were multiplying, leading him closer to the truth or further into the dark. Chapter 8. Twists in the fog. The Brighton Grand Hotel, its Art Deco splendor cloaked in a fog that rolled off the English Channel like a shroud, stood as a gilded prison where secrets festered. The discovery of Robert Sinclair's body, washed ashore with a sketch of Lady Evelyn in his pocket, had sent a shiver through the hotel, deepening the mystery of Sir Reginald Harrington's murder. Hercule Poirot, his holiday forsaken, stood on the promenade, the damp air clinging to his impeccable suit as he gazed at the sea's restless churn. The clues: ledger, love letter, glove, syringe, arsenic, sapphire pendant, anonymous note, and now a drowned artist, wove a tapestry of deception. each thread a false trail or a hidden truth. The fog, it conceals but it also reveals, Poirot murmured, his mustache twitching as his little gray cells grappled with the labyrinth. The cyanide's swift strike, the arsenic's slow betrayal, and Sinclair's death suggested a killer, or killers, with a cunning that rivaled his own. The morning's grim discovery dominated the drawing room, where Inspector Japp gathered the suspects, their faces etched with unease under the chandelier's muted glow. Lady Evelyn Harrington, her gray dress a stark contrast to her former elegance, sat rigid, her eyes red from tears or guilt. Victor Lang, no longer handcuffed but under scrutiny, paced with the agitation of a trapped animal, his sharp features drawn. Miss Elena Voss, her raven hair gleaming, lit a cigarette with calculated poise, her gray eyes scanning the room like a predator's. Dr. Philip Crowe, his shoulder bandaged from the gunshot, stood by the window, his medical bag weeks. The ledger implicating Lang, the love letters tying Evelyn, the sapphire pendant fueling Voss's revenge, Crowe's grudge, Thomas's fingerprints on the cyanide vial. And now Sinclair's death. The arsenic suggested a slow, intimate poisoning. Evelyn's tea, perhaps, while the cyanide required precision during the toast. A dual method, hinting at a partnership. Interrogations resumed, each suspect a knot in the web. Evelyn admitted dosing Harrington's tea with mild sedatives prescribed by Crowe to ease his temper. "I thought it helped," she whispered, tears welling. "But arsenic? Never." Tests confirmed the arsenic in her tea leaves was a recent addition, supporting her claim of being framed. Poirot studied her, noting her quick glances at Thomas, whose loyalty seemed to waver between devotion and fear. Lang pressed on his embezzlement, confessed to siphoning funds, but swore he hadn't killed Harrington. "I owed money, yes, but I'd have paid it back." His link to Voss's offshore account, uncovered by the banker's telegraph, suggested a shared scheme. But Voss dismissed it. "Business, not murder," she said coolly, her cigarette smoke curling like a veil. Voss's past with Harrington deepened the motive. The sapphire pendant, found in his safe, was hers. Stolen in Paris to ruin her. "He blackmailed me for years," she admitted, her voice like ice. "But I'm no killer." Her locked case, still unopened, loomed large. Japp threatened to force it, but Poirot demurred. "Patience, mon ami. The truth, it reveals itself in time." Crowe, questioned about the gunshot, insisted an intruder attacked him. "I saw a shadow, then the shot," he said, his bandaged shoulder lending credence, but the footprints outside, matching Lang's shoes, muddied the waters. Lang denied it, claiming he'd walked the cliffs to clear his head. Poirot's eyes narrowed. Another staged clue? A startling revelation came from Thomas, the valet, staged as suicide, hinted at a cover-up. Who benefited? Evelyn's inheritance, Lang's financial freedom, Voss's revenge, Crowe's justice, Thomas's recognition. All were motives, but the dual poisoning suggested collaboration. A maid's discovery deepened the mystery. A hidden compartment in Harrington's suite held a second will, naming Thomas as a minor beneficiary. Forged, like the first? Poirot suspected so, noting Lang's handwriting in the alterations. Japp's search of Voss's room yielded a cryptic letter, unsigned, hinting at a Paris alliance. "We'll settle the score," it read. Voss denied writing it, but her locked case remained a question mark. Crow's bag, re-examined, held sedatives matching Evelyn's tea, but no arsenic. Yet his access to poisons was undeniable. As evening fell, the fog thickened, wrapping the hotel in a ghostly embrace. Poirot sat in the lounge, sipping a tisane, his mind a whirl of connections. The clues, ledger, glove, syringe, pendant, letters, note, body, pointed everywhere and nowhere. The forged suicide note suggested Sinclair was silenced, perhaps knowing too much. Was he Evelyn's lover or a pawn in a larger game? The arsenic and cyanide, two methods hinted at two hands. One patient, one bold. Poirot's gray cells churned. Evelyn and Voss, perhaps, united by Harrington's wrongs? Or Crow, manipulating evidence to avenge his sister? Thomas's confession, heartfelt but incomplete, lingered. A sudden commotion broke his reverie. A chase through the fog-shrouded halls, Japp's men pursuing a figure seen tampering with the conservatory's broken pane. Thomas, caught fleeing, his hands scratched from glass. "I was looking for evidence," he stammered, his eyes wide with panic. Japp cuffed him, but Poirot intervened. "Non, mon ami, he is not our killer, yet he knows more than he says." The fog closed in, and Poirot sensed the truth was near. The truth. It will break like thunder. Poirot had requested the ballroom for a final assembly, a stage for his little gray cells to unravel the tangle. Inspector Japp, his trench coat damp from a morning on the cliffs, ushered the suspects in with a scowl. Lady Evelyn Harrington, her gray dress a shroud of mourning, sat with trembling hands, her emerald eyes darting nervously. Victor Lang, his sharp features haggard, leaned against a pillar, his earlier polish eroded by suspicion. Miss Helena Voss, her raven hair gleaming, lit a cigarette with deliberate grace, her gray eyes cool but watchful. Dr. Crow, his shoulder bandaged, stood rigidly, his medical bag at his feet like a silent accusation. Thomas, now released but under watch, hovered at the edges, his face pale with fear. The air crackled with tension, the fog outside pressing against the tall windows like an uninvited guest. Poirot began, his voice clear and commanding. "Mes amis, the murder of Sir Reginald Harrington is a puzzle of many pieces, each designed to mislead. The cyanide, swift and precise, killed him at 8:55. The arsenic, slow and insidious, weakened him for weeks. The ledger, glove, syringe, lipstick, pendant, letters, and forged will. These are the threads of a clever web." He paced, his cane tapping rhythmically. "But the truth, it lies in the motives. Madame Harrington's inheritance, Monsieur Lang's financial ruin, Mademoiselle Voss's revenge, Dr. Crow's vendetta, and young Thomas's disinheritance." The suspects shifted, their eyes avoiding his gaze. Japp presented the latest evidence, a second analysis of the forged will, confirming Lang's handwriting, but dated after Harrington's death. "You altered it, Lang," Japp barked. Lang's face drained of color. "I swear I didn't. Someone used my pen." Poirot raised a hand. "Mon ami, the will is a distraction, like the lipstick on the goblet. Voss's shade, yet she claims it's stolen." "Voss, pharmacy duties." Poirot studied him, sensing truth but also fear, a pawn perhaps in a larger game. The sapphire pendant, Voss's stolen heirloom, pointed to her motive. "He blackmailed me," she admitted, her voice like ice. "But I didn't poison him." Her locked case, still unopened, loomed as a question mark. Poirot reconstructed the timeline. Evelyn's absence. Lang at the bar until 8:50. Voss's telegraph. Crows mingling. The cyanide was slipped into Harrington's glass during the toast, the arsenic administered over weeks, likely in his tea. The clues, glove, syringe, ledger, note, were too perfect, planted to confuse. Poirot's eyes gleamed. "The killer. They wish us to chase shadows. But the truth, it is in the alliance." He turned to Evelyn. "Madame, your tears, they are convincing. But the anonymous note warns of them. You dosed the arsenic, oui? To weaken him?" She shook her head, sobbing. "No, I loved him despite everything." A new clue emerged. A maid found a ring vial in the dining room, hidden under a tablecloth, bearing traces of cyanide. Its design matched a ring Voss wore, but she denied ownership. "It's not mine," she snapped. Poirot's mind raced. A dual poisoning, arsenic to weaken, cyanide to kill. Evelyn had access to the tea, Voss to the dining room. A partnership? The forged will benefited Evelyn, the pendant's recovery, Voss. Lang's embezzlement and Crow's grudge were distractions, their clues too obvious. Thomas's confession, heartfelt but incomplete, suggested he was manipulated. Poirot faced Evelyn, his voice soft but piercing. "Madame, you and Mademoiselle Voss, you knew each other in Paris, no? Harrington wronged you both." Evelyn paled. Voss's cigarette paused mid-air. "You administered arsenic, slowly, in his tea. Voss, she added cyanide, using the ring vial during the toast." Evelyn broke, her voice a whisper. He was a monster. Stage for truth's unveiling, stood resolute against the storm's renewed fury, the fog giving way to a deluge that battered the English Channel. The grand ballroom, with its crystal chandeliers and polished floors, hosted a tense assembly as Hercule Poirot, his holiday abandoned, prepared to unravel the mystery of Sir Reginald Harrington's murder. The clues: ledger, love letter, glove, syringe, arsenic, sapphire pendant, forged will, anonymous note, and the drowned artist Robert Sinclair, had woven a web of deception, each thread a false trail or a hidden truth. The gunshot in Dr. Philip Crow's room, Thomas's confession as Harrington's disowned son, and the mounting evidence pointed to a cunning conspiracy. Poirot paced before the suspects, his cane tapping a deliberate rhythm, his little gray cells alight with clarity. "Mes amis," he declared, his voice resonant. "The truth, it emerges like the sun through this storm. The murder of Monsieur Harrington, it is the work of not one, but two." The suspects sat rigid under the chandelier's glow. Lady Evelyn Harrington, her gray dress a shroud of feigned mourning, clutched a handkerchief, her emerald eyes wide with dread. Victor Lang, his sharp features etched with exhaustion, leaned forward, his earlier polish gone. Miss Elena Voss, her raven hair gleaming, exhaled cigarette smoke with a defiance that masked unease, her gray eyes locked on Poirot. Dr. Philip Crow, his shoulder bandaged, stood by the window, his medical bag a silent witness. Thomas, the valet, hovered at the edges, his face pale, his nervous fidgeting stilled by Poirot's commanding presence. Inspector Japp, his trench coat damp, stood ready, his notebook open, his scowl softened by trust in Poirot's method. The air crackled with anticipation, the storm outside a fitting chorus to the drama within. Poirot began, his voice a blend of precision and drama. The murder, it is a tapestry of two poisons, arsenic, administered over weeks to weaken, and cyanide slipped into the glass at 8. Leaves tampered with were found in your suite, but cleverly placed to suggest a frame. You were careful, but not careful enough. He pivoted to Voss, who froze, her cigarette poised. Mademoiselle Voss, you were in Paris with Madame Harrington, wronged together by Harrington's cruelty. He stole your pendant, your inheritance, and ruined her with his control. Together, you planned. Arsenic to weaken, cyanide to finish. During the toast, you slipped the poison from a ring vial, your movements swift, unseen. Voss's lips parted, her voice sharp. You have no proof, monsieur. Poirot smiled faintly. The vial, found under the tablecloth, bears your lipstick's shade, confirmed by analysis. The glove, embroidered with E, was Madame Harrington's, planted in Dr. Crow's room to confuse. Japp's men shifted, ready to act, but Poirot continued, his voice relentless. The red herrings, the ledger implicating Monsieur Lang, the syringe in Madame's luggage, the forged will, they were your distractions. The love letters signed R were not from Sinclair but written by you, Mademoiselle Voss, to suggest an affair and muddy the waters. Sinclair, poor soul, knew too much. Your confidant, perhaps, silenced by drowning to protect your plan. Evelyn sobbed, her composure shattered. He was a friend, nothing more. Voss's eyes blazed. You're guessing, Poirot. Poirot produced the ring vial, now in a sealed bag, courtesy of Japp's evidence team. The vial's design matches your ring, mademoiselle. The lipstick, it is yours. The forged will, it benefits Madame Harrington, but its ink matches your pen, found in your locked case, opened at last by the locksmith. He turned to Evelyn. The letters, madame, they were written in your hand. But, under Mademoiselle Voss's direction, a partnership of vengeance. Evelyn broke, her voice a whisper. What he earned. Japp cuffed them, his voice gruff. You'll answer for it, both of you. Poirot stepped back, his cane resting lightly. The little gray cells, they have spoken. Order is restored. The storm outside broke, sunlight piercing the clouds, illuminating the ballroom in a golden glow. Lang faced charges for fraud, Crow for negligence in his pharmacy. But the murder was solved. Thomas, quietly inheriting a small sum, slipped into the shadows, his pain unspoken. Poirot adjusted his Homburg hat, his eyes on the sea. Now, perhaps, for my holiday, he said softly, though he knew another mystery would soon call. The sun shone, justice prevailed, and the Brighton Grand Hotel stood silent, its secrets laid bare.